Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the latest on a case where a woman is accused of murdering her husband in Laurel County. And President Biden is receiving help in the form of his old boss to try and defeat Donald Trump in the upcoming election.
Plus, rain chances return for the holiday weekend. Your forecast on the way as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. There is a massive coordinated response going on in Baltimore to find the bodies of 6 men thrown into the water when a cargo ship lost power and hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge, causing it to collapse. There is also a multi-governmental effort to try and ease the economic impact from one of America's busiest ports being shut down. CBS's Natalie Brand has more from Baltimore.
A dangerous and intense recovery effort continues to locate the construction workers who were on the Francis Scott Key Bridge at the time of its collapse. That includes Miguel Luna, a husband and father of 3.
As we've moved now to a recovery effort, the same commitment that I make to the families is we are going to use every asset to bring them a sense of closure.
The NTSB remains in the early stages of investigating what happened on board the Dolly cargo ship as it left the port of Baltimore overnight Tuesday, then hit a support column of the landmark bridge. The NTSB will begin interviewing personnel and analyzing evidence from the ship, including the voyage data recorder.
What I hope to release later today is a timeline of events, data that we have that we can provide to the public to show what was occurring immediately prior to the strike.
For now, the Port of Baltimore is closed to ship traffic as crews examine the area and then work to clear the channel.
And there are underwater surveys that are happening by remotely operated vehicle. Divers will be in the water today to complete that underwater survey.
Baltimore's port is one of the busiest on the East Coast and the nation's #1 hub for importing and exporting vehicles.
The Port of Baltimore is an important port, so for our supply chains and for all the workers who depend on it for their income, we're going to help to get it open as soon as safely possible.
Maryland's governor says the port directly employs about 15,000 workers and more than 100,000 indirectly. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Baltimore.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says he is convening a panel of shippers and supply chain partners to work on a coordinated approach to mitigate their impact. Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett is being sued for defamation by a Kansas City Chiefs fan who was briefly detained after a parade shooting. The Washington Post reports Burchett is accused of defaming Denton Loudermill Jr. Loudermill was briefly detained in the chaos after the February 14th shooting. He was not charged or cited with a crime. Burchett tweeted a photo of Loudermill with a caption that implied he was one of the shooters and a, quote, illegal alien. Former President Barack Obama is jumping in to help President Biden defeat Donald Trump again. Obama met with the president at the White House Friday, and they took part in an organizing call to mark the 14th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act on Saturday. Sources say the campaign plans to roll out parts of the conversation between the two presidents in the coming weeks. The former president has already agreed to several campaign appearances before November. NBC News cut ties with former Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel just 80 hours after announcing she had been hired as a paid contributor. NBC Universal News Group boss Cesar Condi announced he reversed his decision to add her to their team in a memo to staff last night. He says the decision came after listening to what he called the legitimate concerns of many of them and apologized to team members who felt they let him down. The Republican National Committee appears to have an unusual litmus test for new staffers. Sources say during job interviews, candidates are being asked whether they believe the 2020 presidential election was stolen. The question comes after the Trump campaign effectively merged its operations with the RNC. The former president continues to claim the 2020 election was filled with fraud, despite no evidence of that. The Lone Star State called up more help for border security. 200 additional National Guard troops arrived in El Paso, Texas on Tuesday, deployed by Governor Greg Abbott as part of Operation Lone Star. There's been a recent rash of incidents with migrants along the border with Mexico. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, several migrants breached a fence last week and clashed with members of the National Guard. A sentencing hearing for the man who attacked Paul Pelosi with a hammer has been delayed by a month. David DePape was originally slated to be sentenced on the assault and attempted kidnapping charges on April 24th. That conviction was handed down in federal court for the attack at former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home on her husband. But DePape is also facing state charges. A judge rescheduled the sentencing for May 22nd.
After some wet weather on Tuesday, we are tracking some improvements in the forecast today, also tomorrow and on Friday, all thanks to high pressure. A live look this evening from the WYMT studios, and that current temperature is mild on Wednesday, up to 63 degrees, as we see some filtered sunshine back in the distance, up to 64 in Pikeville, also in Manchester, up to 66 in Harlan, and 65 over in Bell County for Middlesboro. So we stay comfortable as we go into this evening. Up on first alert pinpoint Doppler, all thanks to high pressure, a clean sweep, and that will continue as we go into this evening. Your forecast, not too bad, but notice once the sun sets, those temperatures are chilly. Once again, most of us in the middle to upper 40s, and we see some 30s as you wake up on Thursday. Most of us in the middle to lower 30s as you walk out the door on Thursday, so be sure to bundle up. High pressure, once again, the big story tomorrow, so we are tracking some more dry weather, but be sure to enjoy that because rain chances are set to increase by Easter weekend. Also tracking some more warm weather for this weekend. We see some 70s later on this week. All those details plus your Easter weekend forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. A man is dead and his wife is now behind bars accused of his murder. Kelsey Soto has the latest in this ongoing investigation from Laurel County.
London Laurel County's 911 center says they got a call just after 7:30 Monday evening from a woman claiming her husband had been shot and he might be dead. An arrest citation shows 2 officers showed up to the home on Southland Drive and found Yolanda Yomelli and her son. Inside, Manuel Lomelli Jr. was found bloodied and laying underneath a blanket. Officers believe he was dead before help ever arrived. Documents claim Yolanda repeatedly asked for her lawyer when talking to both dispatchers and law enforcement. Records show her son told officers his mom called him Sunday night crying, asking him to fly home to London. He said his plane landed around 5:30 Monday. When he asked where his father was, he told officers Yolanda said to him, quote, he wasn't here anymore. Property records show Manuel Lomelli Jr. bought the house in January of 2023. It's unclear if police have been out to the home before. And while investigators aren't sure if this was a domestic violence situation, they do have advice for those who are unsure of where to turn.
And it is very unfortunate, but we try our best to stop this type of thing from happening. But, you know, if, like I said, if people need resources or they need help or they are in some type of situation that they're uncomfortable with or they're being hurt or abused, that, you know, we're here for them. We want them safe, and that's our primary job, is to keep people safe.
Yomelli was booked into the Laurel County Detention Center around 1 a.m. Tuesday. In London, Kelsey Soto, WKYT.
Lomelli's next court date is Tuesday at 11 a.m. She's charged with murder and tampering with evidence. Her bond is set at $250,000. 2 people were taken to the hospital following a crash this morning in Lexington. Police say a car veered into another lane and hit a second vehicle. That car went off the road and hit a utility pole. It happened at Tates Creek and Laredo Drive. Police say 2 people in the second vehicle were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. That area has since reopened to traffic. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, amid an increase in counterfeit postage stamps being used, we'll hear from a postal inspector about what you can do to report the fraud.
Plus, we are tracking some cool conditions to wake up on Thursday. Your first alert forecast coming up.